Thank you again for joining us. This is our second panel of Senior Living Solutions Dialogue. Jeff is going to host this morning with our presenters and panelists. He'll make the introduction. Just a reminder that we're being recorded. We are recording this today so that we can share it with you after the fact if you're not able to stay on for the entire time, and also share with those who were unable to attend today. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat. You can, if you're not sure how to do that, you can ring us at the office. You can send an email to anyone on the team. All of us are attending this morning and we'll be watching our email as well. So I think maybe just another moment, Jeff, and then you can get us started. And I'm going to jump off.
Thanks, Karen. I'm Jeff Sand. I'm portfolio manager, certified financial planner here with the Raccoon Group. Thank you so much for joining us for our second conversation on senior living solutions. We're very, very fortunate to have our two experts in this area to join us again, Allyson Nathan and Karen Powers. I was going to say it's been a really cold week here in Santa Fe. The high temperature is supposed to be 28. So I thought this would be a good week for me to start my goatee for the winter, keep my chin warm. So if I look fuzzy in your screens, you don't have to adjust your screens. I do look fuzzy today. Let's see. I wanted to mention again how this came about. We had a number of clients mentioned to us that staying in their homes, caring for the homes was becoming a challenge. And so they asked for other alternatives that might be easier and also more fun. And we had also at the same time some family members contact us with concerns about their family members and friends that were having some challenges staying in their homes. And so then that led us into researching this, and we recognized that it's a very big subject and it was beyond our scope. And so we had the opportunity to reach out to some professionals here. And so we're very, very fortunate again to have Allyson Nathan and Karen Powers here to join us in our first conversation. And also the first one that we did is available, a link to the recording of that is available. So just let us know at the office and we can provide that for you. And so if I kind of oversimplified, the first one we kind of talked about how do you identify when there are signs that you might want to consider some alternatives and help people talk through that. And so then today we're going to focus more on some of the how do you choose a facility, how do you look at the costs and things of that nature. So when is the right time, how do you choose, let's see, and then the cost. And one of the things that the ladies here help me recognize also is that sometimes we think, oh, I'm just going to stay at home. But sometimes that ends up even being more costly than if you do another facility. And so that's another thing. So we've got a bit of an agenda here. One of the things like, when's the best time to learn about some of the options? How do you plan? Which of you ladies would like to begin? Or Allyson, let me see. Karen, I think you started last time, just arbitrarily. How about Allyson, if you start this time?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you again for having us. This is a wonderful discussion and so important. That is a question that people ask a lot. When should we start looking? And unfortunately, and a lot of people probably know this, a lot of times people wait until there is a crisis before they start to look. And that doesn't mean that they won't find the solution that they're looking for, but it does mean that they will have to make decisions under stress, much more so than if they plan ahead. So one of the things that we always want to emphasize is how important it is to just stop, take a look, learn about it, know what the options are, so that not only will you know what communities would be an option that you would be happy with, but also to plan ahead financially and work with you guys, Jeff and Karen, about how to plan financially, because there's a big cost associated with senior living, but we can also help people compare the cost of staying at home, just maintaining their home and all of those expenses, but then also if somebody wants to have a caregiver, what that tipping point is when it will become or could become cost prohibitive to try to stay living home. So I say it is never too early to start looking, and kind of outlining a plan, even if it's just in pencil, will be so valuable for you, but also for your family members or anybody who will be helping you make any decisions in the future. So they're not going to have to guess and have all of that added pressure to, be worrying about when they really are just going to be worried about you or your situation. That leads us just to being proactive and really focusing on everything that you can do to make it so no one is going to make a decision for you, or at least without your input. And we just want to help you understand what the process is, so that you won't have many surprises, hopefully any surprises, if or when the time comes.
Thanks. That helps remind me that I do often hear that phrase, that things kind of get delayed until there is a crisis. And so yes, if we can plan ahead and be prepared for that, is definitely better. Karen, any other thoughts on just this thing of when's the right time? How do you choose?
Well, I think we had a topic question on there, and I really want to talk about it in terms of what it costs, from a wait list to a deposit to care fees and the base rate, and what you're looking for in a continuum of care. So I can talk about that now, or if that's an evolution after a couple more questions. So
yeah, let's see, maybe well, the whole thing, unless we've covered it enough, is the idea to try to be proactive instead of waiting for the crisis.
Well, and waiting for the crisis tends to be, you have to take what's available. Okay.
Ooh.
And that might not be ideal, and it makes it harder to have the conversation to make the choice, because your ideal would be to move maybe from your home that you've been in for a long time to the 2-bedroom apartment with the balcony that looks over the mountains or the pool. And you get to the community and they say, well, you can move in the studio. And moving from a house to a 400 square foot studio is a huge change, and can be very psychologically difficult to adopt, because you feel like, oh, I've moved, like I'm old, I've moved to senior living, when you get everything reduced to that room. Whereas if you look earlier, you can get on wait lists, you can really have your ideal space. You can go and actually spend time in the community before you move in, so you feel more comfortable. You can go to their activities, you can go to meals there, you start to make some friends. Those are the kinds of things that you ease in, instead of this all of a sudden being sudden, an emergency. Take what they have and then just plop down in the middle of an existing life, and you're like, where's my space in this? How do I fit in with this? When we plan early, you can start easing yourself into that community life and get exactly what you want well before you say, okay, I want one more Christmas at home, or what, next summer when all my family's in town. You can start doing these things well before. So
okay, great.
Can I actually add one thing, Jeff?
Yeah.
One thing Karen's talking about that we should absolutely focus on is that different communities they offer different apartment styles. They offer different physical spaces. So some of them are kind of located maybe more in the city or in a more active part of the town or community. Some of them are a little ways out, and that might be something that's more important to someone who likes space and views and that type of thing. So this isn't just about finding a community. It's really about finding a community that matches your values as closely as possible, so that you're taking into account so much more than just, I need to be in an assisted living community. So back to what Karen was saying, knowing if you really want to have a 2-bedroom apartment on a higher floor or on the first floor, whatever the options are that are available at different communities are what we're talking about, so that we can almost narrow down where your focus should be before you just get completely inundated with information. And then there are details and more details, but it could be that someone just likes the activity calendar and events that one community does more than at a different one. So getting that feel for a community is a really good start. And then paying attention to how you feel, then there are very specific things we recommend that you look for, and Karen is going to talk about that, but this is what we're talking about as far as having a plan, starting with a bigger picture and then getting more detailed.
That helps, because I'm reminded what Karen James in the office just shared recently, that for someone that she's assisting with some research right now, and their first priority was a nice restaurant and good food. So
Yeah.
maybe
So
if
food
we,
is, that's probably one of the number one.
well, and so
Yeah.
what are maybe some of the features that people should have in mind when they start to look now? You mentioned activities, food.
Well, and what you're going to look at is in the cost structure of a community. The more it costs, the more amenities you're going to have. Okay, so I always kind of say it's like there's no such thing as like a secret bargain. Okay, so you get what you pay for. All right, so if the community costs $3,500 a month, they're spending about $2.40 a day on food per person. Okay, now that can seem shocking when you're not in that back of the house, sort of operations land. But if a community costs about $6,000 a month to move in, they're spending about $9.50 per person on food. That means you have 7, 8, 9 choices at a meal. They will accommodate gluten-free, they'll accommodate vegetarian. When you're down in those the lower end, and honestly, budget is budget. So you have the budget that you have, but you're picking from the best of what you can afford. Okay, so when you're at $3,500 a month, you're probably at 2 meal choices a day. And you are at 3 or 4 life enrichment sort of activity things that they plan. Whereas the little bit higher monthly fee you go, you're getting 9, 10, 15 life enrichment things that they plan, because they have 5 and 6 people on staff to do that. So there's the transportation pieces. Are they just going to go to the doctors on Tuesday and Thursday? And here's a little tip: never schedule your doctor appointment on Tuesday and Thursday, because that's where every senior living in town is scheduling their appointments for their residents.
That's news to me. Okay.
Or is it all week? And there are things like trips or social outings, that like how robust of a lifestyle are they helping host for you? So is housekeeping weekly? Is housekeeping twice a month? Can you choose? Is that an a la carte thing? So it's definitely, the more you spend, the more things you're going to get, but you have to decide in your budget what's the best for your money, because there's layers within that too. So a hierarchy of layers. And I worked with a gentleman that moved from his big, beautiful home in Connecticut out in the country to inner city New York, to a high rise, because he loved that the energy that it took every time they had to go shopping, and every time they had to go to the doctor, and every time it was an outing, it was a big outing. And he just loved living in that inner city, not bad inner city, nice inner city, but that everything was right out the door. His pharmacy was around the corner. His doctor office was 2 city blocks up. The grocery store would deliver right to his little apartment. So those are the kinds of things that you want to look at. It's like, well, what kind kind of lifestyle? What am I struggling with now? Well, I don't want to struggle with those same things. Okay, so what can be fixed? So
Great, thank you. And then Allyson, how about if they begin to undertake research, how do they get past pretty brochures and things like that? How should they be finding a place?
This is a very important thing, and everybody can probably say they've had a similar experience with any type of a business, but marketing is marketing, and the companies invest a lot of money into beautiful websites, really nice brochures, great photos and things like that. So it's really, if you look at it, you could say, oh, I have so many choices and this is so great. When you pull up into a community or you walk in the front door, that's when you realize this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So, or it is.
This is
Yeah.
more than I thought it would be. Like,
Or
wow,
it could be
you know,
more.
so.
Exactly. And I've seen really nice communities almost under present their quality of life and their lifestyle on a website, because you can only do so much on a website or in a brochure. So it's really important to go in with a plan. We can provide tips for how to choose a community, and a lot of that has to do with what to look for when you take a tour. It also has a lot to do with what you experience when you call, you know, a community, or when you have a conversation with a community, because that could be a very positive thing. Unfortunately, it can also not be a positive thing. Just had that happen yesterday with a client, and she literally is not going to consider a community because of the interaction that she had, which is very atypical. That is not how it is usually. But the whole point is that the communities only have one chance to make a first impression, and you want to look for a community that really does invest in the experience that you have when you call or when you go there. And then it's really also about paying attention. I just say use all your senses whenever you're looking at a community. Pay attention to everything, what you see, what you smell, what you hear. Pay attention to how people interact with each other. One of the things that is a very what would be the right word, like an easy thing to get influenced by are other people's opinions. So Karen and I might go look at a community together, and Karen may say, you know, it's okay. And I could say, oh, that was the best thing I've ever seen. And it's so important because we're both right. Because what matters to each of us is all that matters. I might choose a community that, Jeff, you would not even consider. It just doesn't feel right to you. But it's the same thing with everything else we choose: houses, cars, every decision that we make. It's a personal decision, and paying attention to all of the aspects of the community, where it is, what you experience when you're there, without being influenced by your neighbor or your friend who might have a very different opinion. And then, you know, if you do the exercise to really identify what is the most important to you or your family member, that's when you can start matching up the communities that I just say check all the boxes.
Yeah,
and
for
so,
you.
Huh?
Nothing. I'm sorry. I'm just agreeing.
Oh, thank you. But sometimes it really does take somebody who is a professional in the senior living world to help do that, and really be able to, even if it's just a first pass, be able to say, this community seems like it could be a really good fit for you, or this one or two isn't at all. So don't even bother taking the time to look. For a variety of reasons, a community is going to be good or maybe not so good. So we, you know, I think that is all part, you know, it's such a hard thing because you really do need to invest time and thought and energy into the things that we just say matter most to you.
So some of the things on that key, you know, there are layers in there. I love that you said, Allyson, to use your senses. Okay. So I want to tell you, I've worked for a lot of companies, And a company can put the resources in the right way, that if it costs $3,500 a month to live in that building, there is no reason that it shouldn't be clean. And we're not talking like the obvious things like the smell. Look at the paint. Look at the cushions on the furniture that they staged for the picture. Are they worn at the edges? Or too many lotion hands have touched that stuff? You know, is there enough furniture? Does it seem sort of sparse because they're making something like kind of like setting a stage for something that is actually a deeper, either a deeper strength that the building has or a deeper problem the building has. Not enough resources to keep the building clean, like the physical plant clean. When you go in and have lunch, have they staged lunch that you're only eating with the marketing person? Or are you eating with residents? And maybe you're even left alone a little bit to fully interact with the wait staff and the staff that are there. That's very authentic. They means they have pride in their service. When you are always kept with the salesperson around you like this all the time, I would wonder to ask a few more questions, or ask, can I just have lunch with some residents? You know, ask those questions. One of my pet peeves in the world is when they say in the fancy brochure, we serve 3 delicious, nutritious meals a day, and there are 2 choices at every meal. That's the law. Okay, so they have to do that. But again, in the level of service, they can still be very good meals. Okay, or are you looking at their food that it's all like a heated packaged product? You know, they've just ripped open the whole kitchen, are just box openers and water adders to the meal and a heat up and go. Or are they doing some scratch things? You can do that whether you serve 2 meals or whether you serve 18 meals a day. Those choices, things. So those are those background things that you want to look at. It's like not just the sales pitch, but you know, how clean is it really? I mean, that's pretty paint, but you know, it's scuffed, it's marked, it's the shredded carpet bits, little
smells like
sad pillows.
bleach
So,
and harsh chemicals.
yeah, does it smell like chemicals, or is
Up?
it very pleasant, you know, covering up things? They will often, sometimes a little pervading odor will happen, but if they have a good explanation for it, or it's only one little section of the building, you can kind of see that there might just be something going on that day. Or is it every time you visit? You know, those are the kinds of things you want to look at. So
One of the points that you just made about the way that they prepare meals, I have come to describe that as focusing on efficiency versus experience. And sometimes it's really just more processed food that is faster to prepare and serve versus actually having real chef prepared meals, which some communities actually do. And they focus on a dining experience. So it's somewhat evident, but you can also tell when you do dine at a community exactly what Karen was saying about what the interaction is like. I go further than that and also pay attention to how the staff talks to the residents, because I'm not a fan of anyone who works in a community referring to the residents as hun or sweetie. It's very condescending. And that happened actually, ironically, because I work in this business. But when my grandmother moved into a community, that's what happened. And I was there for lunch and I said, this is Dottie, in case you haven't met. And then I introduced her friends. In other words, use her name, not sweetie. And that's another kind of thing you can observe and maybe have a reaction to. I certainly do, because again, this has to do with experience and dignity and wanting to be somewhere where you know you're going to be respected.
Thank you. Let's say that I have gone through the process, I've done some research, and now I'm considering moving forward. And so you had referenced earlier, maybe you still have to get on a reservation list or a wait list. Should we be contacting a senior advisor, assistant? So help me walk through the steps then.
well, what will happen, this is where I want you to like really focus on making it on your timeline. because a salesperson will create urgency that doesn't necessarily have to be there. Okay.
We forget about that. Yes.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
become your friend and they become your trusted advisor. So, what will happen is if you're proactive about this, you can look at, this is the community I'd like to be at. This is the kind of apartment I would like to have. Okay. But I want you to leave a little wiggle room in there because something might happen in your life before the apartment, your ideal apartment area, the building or community has an availability for you. So you have to have a little wiggle room in there. But often the building will say, okay, all of our 2 bedrooms are full, but we'll put you on the 2-bedroom wait list. Okay. But then what they'll say is you can move up that wait list if you actually already live in the building, because they might have an internal wait list for the building. It's like Tetris. If an apartment comes available, they offer it to the people that are in-house first, they move in, and then this is actually the apartment that's available. So you have to decide. Leave a little wiggle room. You know, you might like the 1-bedroom after you move into it, or you might like the studio after you move into it. So, but you leave a wait list deposit usually, which is a little less than a full deposit to move into the community. I'm just in line, keep my money. They might call you every 2 weeks and say, hey, we have an apartment. If you're not ready, that's okay. Okay. Don't let them go, this is only gonna, every senior living community, the statistic out there is they move 6 people out a month. Okay. So that is just a standard statistic. And if they have a month where they only move 2 people out, in 2 months, they're going to move 9 people out. It's just a thing. So don't let you get them pressure you about, you must move now. Okay. So make it your timeline, but be ready to move when maybe your timeline moves up. Okay. So then you take a wait list, then you'll take what a lot of people call, the language in the world is a community fee. And the community fee is not like when you were thinking when you had to rent an apartment and put down a security deposit for the apartment and then you move out and they're going to give it back to you. It's usually, it goes into a general fund in the building. So it looks the way it looks, you know, so you have throw pillows in the common areas and niceties and things like that, you know, the fireplaces and, you know, a cafe bar with coffee service all day, you know, those are the kinds of things that the community fee goes into, the nice things. So don't expect to get it back. Okay, I just really want you to know when they talk community fee upon move in, that's basically just a fee to move into the community. So at the end of the stay or a move on to a higher level care, you probably will not get that back. Okay, it's just the slightest, it's like the first precursor to buy-ins, you know, but it's the way they make sure that their grounds and physical plant looks the way it does. Okay.
The way I describe that too is that it's not an operating, it's not used for the monthly operational fees, but it's also about, Karen, is this your experience, but 2,000, 2,500, give or take, it can be much more in more expensive.
It depends on the area that you're in, and I don't know where your clients are. But if you're on the West Coast, or like my company right now in Austin, Texas, our entry fee, community fee in downtown Austin, a beautiful community that we have, is $15,000. Okay. But if I am in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where I have a community there, it's $2,500. So you really, and we have like the nicest building in Cedar Rapids. So you really are just like wherever your clients are, that's just the same. It's like, start when you're shopping around, they'll tell you these different community fees and you ask what it's for. And then you can say, is it deserved? Because again, if the pillows aren't fluffy and fresh and the paint needs a little sag, you're like, why are you charging me $10,000 in here? So those are the kind of questions that you go. So wait list will kind of like just secure you on a list, and that might even secure you on like, I want a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor. Those are usually like $1,000 or $1,500, $1,000, $1,500. You often get it back if you say, listen, I did that at 3 buildings, I did it at 3 different communities, I picked this one, they'll give that back to you. Okay. But it's once you commit and say, yes, I'm moving in, and they charge you that community fee, that's, you are moving in and you will not get that back once you move in. Okay. Then you're looking at, this is very important to me for people to discern, and it's getting, sometimes it's very, very transparent and sometimes it is not. The monthly fee for housekeeping, laundry, meals, the rent itself, okay, utilities, Activities and transportation, that's usually the monthly fee. Then there's care fee. Okay, so if you need any kind of physical assistance, like a medication management, someone to come at 8 o'clock in the morning and say, here are the right prescriptions that you need to be taking right now. Any kind of physical help, getting into the shower because you're a little unstable, getting maybe helping you get your clothes on in the morning because you have some left side weakness. Those are the kinds of things that are called care fees. Okay, they can be as murky as, you know, mud in some communities, saying, well, we really can't tell you what that's going to be until we do an assessment. And then others will give you a price sheet that say, if you need this, this, and this, this is the care fee. And if you need this, this, and this, this is the care fee. And you can kind of look at yourself like, yes, I need showering. Yes, I need medication. So that's going to be about what my care fees are. So it's monthly fee plus care fees. So very often on marketing materials, you only see the monthly fee. Okay, so you might see a $4,000 one-bedroom apartment. You're like, that's deal of the century, but you need medication management, help into the shower, and help getting dressed every morning, but you can kind of manage on your own at night. Well, that could add another $3,000 to $5,000 a month. Okay, so you can ask for an assessment. You can say, I would like an assessment just to ballpark right now what I think it might be. Okay. So because that is such a murky piece, and so many people think it's going to be $4,000 or $5,000, and then we go to 1 week before move-in when they really do the assessment, and you find out it's going to be $7,500. Okay, so you're looking at 4 fees: a wait list, $1,000, $1,500 to say yes. Call me when there's a 2-bedroom. Call me when there's a 1-bedroom with a balcony, etc. Call me when there's a memory care studio available. Community fee can be anywhere between $2,000 and $20,000. It just depends on where you live. Okay, West Coast, you're looking at Seattle, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, those big urban markets, you're really looking at over $10,000. Midwest, smaller rural, like here in Santa Fe, you know, like that's, you know, $2,500, something like that. Community fee, don't get that back. Monthly fee is based on the size of the apartment. Okay, 1-bedroom or studios, 1-bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 2-bedroom, 2-bath with a den. That's your meals, housekeeping, laundry, activities, okay, and transportation. And I feel like I missed something.
Emergency response system. Having access to the emergency
your security system and things like that, you know, call lights and things. Then care. So the 2 fees that the one that you want to explore the most is, what is care going to cost? So if you go to one company, I know there's one particular company that I think it takes a rocket science to figure out what their care is. And they kind of just like, here's the number. So you need to ask for assessment. And like I said, in some communities have a sales sheet and it just says, if you need these things, this is how much it's going to be. You need these things, this is how much it's going to be. So
that's what they call a level of care from a language standpoint. So when you look at a brochure, when it says level of care, that's exactly what Karen's talking about. They do an assessment. They can calculate how much time somebody's going to need to receive the care that they need. They plug it into a program, and that's what kind of calculates the amount of time that translates into staffing fees, that translates into the cost for care. And you're absolutely right. Some of them you couldn't even begin to guess what level of care you might fall into. And some of them do give an itemized example, but until they do the assessment, you really can't know for sure. And this is another area I just want to point out. When somebody says they looked at a community and it cost $3,500 or $5,000 a month, and they don't understand when their friend tells them, well, they told me it's going to cost $7,500 a month. This is again why this is such a unique situation for every single person, because everyone's needs are different. So the cost for one person isn't going to be exactly the same based on the variables, apartment size, sometimes even the location of the apartment. They can charge a premium for apartments with better views or closer to the elevator, whatever it is in the actual building that is kind of gives it a higher value. So there are different ways the communities calculate all of these fees.
One note is, and Allyson did say this, is it really, you know, from the back of the house and me looking in the operations of the community, it really is time. So Allyson might need 3 different things to help her to get ready for her day. And I might need 3 things to help me get ready for my day or get through our day. But mine only take 20 minutes and hers takes an hour and a half. And so a person to person go, well, she gets 3 things and I get 3 things. Why is it different? It's time. It really is the amount of time. And what you'll see very often in many communities, many companies have figured this out. The number one thing that people often ask for is help managing all those medications, all the different prescriptions, what comes where and when. And so they'll carve that out. Okay. And they'll say, okay, if you just need us to help with medication, it's $450. So you know that. You're like, okay, great. So then you start thinking about the care fees and the time of the actual physical care. So just some tips.
I'm glad they did that. That is not new, but it has evolved. And the variable with that is if somebody needs a certain number of medications more than one time a day, it could cost $400 a month. It could cost $600 a month, because again, it translates into the time that the caregiver would be spending.
But they've started to carve that out. And I think that kind of helps people, because a lot of people's like, listen, if we just had that, then we would know, you know, so it helps. So.
Well, thanks. So this helped identify the some of the costs, that it's not just simply what's your room per month, but you've got care, community fees, and different things. So let's now step into the area of funding. And so how do I pay for this? I know you both have mentioned before that there is some assistance for maybe some people have long-term care, maybe some people have veterans benefits and some other things that I hadn't considered before. So who would like to start with how do we pay for this? Is it just out of pocket?
I want to share one thing first, then I'm going to let Karen run with the more specific ways people pay for it. One of the questions that I am asked so frequently, or people will just say, I have Medicare. And Medicare does not pay for long-term care. So that's something that everyone should keep in mind. This isn't going to be paid for by insurance. And then there are other options, and different people have different assets, homes they may sell, those types of things. But there are some really nice tools that have evolved to assist people, especially when they need to make a move before they can sell their house. So Karen, if you want to talk about the different funding sources.
Sure. So always short answer on any kind of care. We talked in our last panel about short-term rehabilitation. You're just there for a little bit, you're going to get better, you're going to go back home or go to assisted living from there. That's Medicare. Okay, so anything else, they just call it private pay. So out of your own personal pocket, however you get that money. Okay, so if you're going to move to an independent living community, or you're going to move to an assisted living community that offers care services, or you need to move on to a memory care community, anything that's not a short-term rehabilitation, you're looking at your own private assets. So funds you've saved in your retirement account now, instead of, you know, whatever your monthly bills are at home, become your monthly bill at the community. If you have long-term care insurance, and I'm thinking we're in kind of a generation that did a really good job tapping into that. When I started 25 years ago, we had 2 people on long-term care insurance, and I would look in my community right now, and I would say 30% of our people living with us are using a long-term care insurance policy. Now, long-term care insurance policies have not done a great job of catching up with the exact amount of care or exact cost. Okay. And they have some qualifiers of when you can use it. So a lot of times they'll say that you need help with at least 3 things. And it's medication management, helping physically get dressed or bathe for the day, or maybe an escort assistance. They have a list of things that you need at least help with 3 physical things for the policy to even activate. So that's why it doesn't often work in this independent living to wait till you're starting to receive assisted living services for that. And, you know, back in like the late 90s and the mid 2000s, which are now the policies that people are starting to access, it was pretty generous to find a $160 a day or a $225 a day policy. Okay, that's great. But I would say assisted living right now costs about $300 a day. Okay, so you're still going to have a little out of pocket. Now you're going to tap into that and they'll say, yeah, we'll pay up to $160 a day to do this. Well, okay, then I'm going to come up with $150 a day to cover the rest of the bill, and however that works out, you know, for the month. And then often there's a time cap on your long-term care policy. This is good for 3 years. This is good for 5 years. We'll pay $160 a day for 5 years, or there's an amount cap. We will pay $160 a day until $150,000, then you're out. Okay, so often people will look at that, however the time cap is or the amount cap is, and they might delay a little bit accessing the assisted living benefit. It's a personal choice. I prefer using it up front because you don't know what's going to be happening in 5 years. And you let that in policy that you've paid for all this time and you only used half of it. Use it now. Figure out that the rest later. You know, like move your money, use the money it's like not breaking the piggy bank open on the rainy day. It's raining. Use the piggy bank. Okay. So that's a long-term care policy. Now, there's another piece in there that is what we call the VA aid and attendance. If the person that is going to move into assisted living, they do need to use it in assisted living. They cannot use it in independent living. And the cost of their care is more than 5% of their monthly income. So let's say you got a pension, you got your Social Security coming in, and you have some Roth IRA investment payout, annuity payout, or something like that, and it totals to be $3,000 a month, but the community you want to move into is $4,200 a month. So then you're going to say, I could qualify for this veteran aid and attendance. The only other qualifier on veteran aid and attendance is your time of service must have been during a time of conflict. So we're just about out of the World War II, people. So, and it only had to be 1 day. So we've moved into the Korean War people that count. Okay, and we're just starting to see the little first trickle of the Vietnam War people. So as long as even if you were just in the Air Force for 4 years back in the early 50s, as long as one of those enlisted days was during, you didn't have to go to Korea, you just had to be enlisted during the time of conflict. That's when you qualify for the VA aid and attendance. Okay, so, and there's caps on that. It probably won't pay for the whole thing, but it would be like up to about another $2,200 a month in a benefit that you could get to add to your own income to pay for the senior living community. So there's the veteran themselves. Then there's the spouse of the veteran. So it could be the husband or the wife, and then it could be the couple. So if the couple's still together, there's a couple rate. And if it's just the spouse, so if you have a mother or a father, but your mother or father, the veteran themselves is gone, there's still a spouse benefit. It's smaller. It's about $950 a month as a cap. So don't ever look at those cap numbers thinking that's what you're going to get. They're going to move it around based on what you need. And if you are flat out of money, they're going to tell you, you qualify for Medicaid, go get Medicaid. They're not going to supplement Medicaid. Okay, it's just for, and so what we like about VA aid and attendance too is you don't have to have divested yourself from your house or all your other assets. They'll say, hey, you can have all the assets in the world as long as your care, the fee of your care is 5% more than your monthly income. So from,
and that is just the care, correct? It isn't just, it's not.
Oh, no, it's the monthly fee. So it would be
fee.
the move-in fee. It would be the monthly fee for all the services plus your care services. So yes, so it's kind of a nice little thing. There was a big boom on it, you know, right from about 2005 till about 2015, because we were really running through those World War II veterans. And now it's kind of simmered down and we're starting to tap into the Korean War veterans, which actually means that the VA has more time to help you qualify for it. Okay. And go straight to the VA. Do not go to any outside company, investment group, or anybody that says, we will qualify you for this program. We will guarantee you qualify for this program if you pay us, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
No, the VA will tell you, hey, I do that for free. So that's VA aid and attendance. If we start to look at, so now you're starting to look at, remember back to rainy day. This might mean that you need to sell your home. The asset that you have in your home at the $200,000, or if it's all full paid off and you've sold a $450,000 home, this becomes the bank account to pay for senior living. Okay. Now, Allyson had said there's other ways that you could draw from your home equity, like you could take a home equity loan out, or you could refinance the home, or you could do something like a reverse mortgage. My personal opinion on reverse mortgages are they're not my favorite choice, but that would be something you'd want to talk to your financial advisor about.
It's generally not one of my favorites either.
Yeah,
Just
it's like you're drawing from money, and then it almost just deflates your asset when you might need it more later.
Yeah,
So,
I always dislike where you're basically giving up control. I always like people to have control. Yeah.
so go ahead.
With the reverse mortgage, I agree. It's always nicer when you don't need to do that, but for some people that is their only asset.
It could fit.
That might be their only way.
And when it is done for the right reason, it can be a very useful tool. One example is when it's a couple and one of the spouses might have Alzheimer's or dementia, and they do need to be in a community, but the other spouse isn't ready to leave the house. They can access the money that they do have in the house to pay for the care for their spouse. They can use it to pay for home care at home as well. Reverse mortgages are protected. It's important to use a reliable source for them, but the bank does, there are a lot of very scary negative rumors about them. The house, depending on the loan, but you shouldn't ever owe more than the home is worth. So that's one thing. The bank does not take the home. Reverse mortgages do require, though, that you are that's your primary residence. And they do check on that. So you can't take a reverse mortgage out to pay, keep your home, take a reverse mortgage, and then move into a senior living community, because you're really technically not living in the house as your primary residence. So it's important to know what you're doing and work with the right people if you even want to look into that. But there is another source that's terrific that does bridge loans for people.
Yeah,
they
bridge
pay
loans.
The community directly. It's a short-term loan. Usually it's, due within a year. They'll give you a year. They'll work with you if the house isn't selling. But the beautiful thing about that is that people sometimes are in the hospital or they're in rehab or something changes and they have to move before they can sell their house. And this company has a very unique product that
Edge something.
It's Elder Life.
Elder Life, thank you. Elder Life Financial, that's right. They do that bridge loan. So maybe it's going to take so this past summer, man, you just had to barely put a for sale sign out, home gone. And now they're talking about in 2023, it could take 4 or 5 months. Yeah. So Elder Life does a bridge loan. They will pay the assisted living community for 6 months while your home sells. Then they will take that fee out of the home sale. You're left with the rest of the asset. There's other things to do, like sell the home for a less expensive home, take some of the asset, move it over, especially when you've got 2 spouses, that do that. I briefly want to touch on Medicaid just because it's the thing that people will think, well, I'll just qualify for Medicaid if I don't have if I don't have enough monthly income. They're going to look at every one of your assets. They're going to look at the value of the home. They're going to look at the value of the car. They're going to look at the value of everything. And you have to have spent your assets down to $2,000 for you to qualify for Medicaid. And just what Allyson started this part of the conversation with is Medicaid, it just depends on the state that you're in. There's very few assisted livings that will take Medicaid. Okay. You're mostly looking at moving into a skilled nursing long-term care facility with a Medicaid dollar. And you cannot divest yourself of any of your assets. You cannot give all of your money to your children or your neighbors or deed your house over, because there's a 5-year look back on that. So don't think that Medicaid also is the saving grace. There's quite a few rules too, and they don't, right. And most senior living, being independent and assisted and memory care, do not take Medicaid.
Right. Those are private pay, as Karen said. And the communities that do accept Medicaid may not always accept Medicaid. They might have a certain number of apartments or units that they have
They'll
contract.
have like 5 or 10,
Right.
and then it's all really internal. They're like, hey, I got
Right.
3 people backed up over here, you know?
So people will move into a community, spend down, and then they can apply. It's not as easy as people
And
think.
it's not your 2-bedroom apartment. Very often communities will say, well, we're going to have 2 people live in a studio for the Medicaid rate.
Yeah.
So
Let's see
because they're
where
getting reimbursed.
our time is
Yeah, I was
passing,
just
and
gonna
we're loving
say-
this. Karen James, will you assist us? I know some people have questions and things. Will you help direct us in that area?
Absolutely, and thank you, Jeff. I was just going to share that, Allyson, you were speaking about, and Karen, thank you so much, both of you. You were speaking about scenarios where maybe one spouse or partner is in need of that care and the other is not. You know, one question, and we have numerous questions that have come in, so for everybody who's on, we might run over a few minutes if the ladies can stay on. But the first kind of question and comment is asking what communities might offer, and the, you know, any information you have on this for senior couples when one person has relatively few needs. Like they only need that medication management, but the other one, for example, has dementia and they need skilled nursing, perhaps memory care. I know of an individual where there was a couple, the one definitely needed memory care and the other was in fairly good, physical health. So what does that look like and how is that managed? What is offered?
I can take that one. That's a very common scenario, actually. Depending on somebody's preferences and ability to pay for a community, there are times when people will choose to have the person who needs the care move to a community, assisted living or memory care, and then the other spouse might stay home, still be able to spend time together, but it alleviates a lot of the pressure on the healthier spouse from a caregiving perspective and that type of thing, especially when there's safety issues involved. There are also times when somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia can function well as long as they're with their spouse and they can live in a community together. I have seen where a couple will stay together living even in an independent living community, and the one spouse has the social life, all the activities, their life can adjust but go on socially and in other ways, and their spouse will get the care they need, so they can actually participate in more interaction with their friends and in the community without the worries of leaving somebody home alone that might not be safe. So that's one of the scenarios. The other example that applies to assisted living as well, I've also seen couples live together in memory care community, like a larger apartment in a memory care, and the healthy spouse is able to spend as much time as he or she wants with their spouse. And then during the day, they can go over to the assisted living part of the community, or if they have independent living, they can come and go. So it really depends on the relationship, and different people feel differently about how they want to balance that time. The most important thing is when a couple does live together like that, if something does happen to the healthier spouse, it's really nice to know that the one who does need more care or has a need for memory care is already situated in the community. So it minimizes the trauma that a family goes through or the person goes through. And so there are things to consider depending on the health and the prognosis of both people.
And just to go back to our theme today about fees, okay, and costs. When I started in 1998, we had 2 men in the whole building. Okay. And so now here we are in 2022, and we will have what we call like 30 or 35 couples. And I would say of those couples, I would say 80% of them have one person receiving some kind of care and the other person being independent, like not needing anything to help, but at least like the stress of the care of the other person is now alleviated from them. So there's something called a second person fee. You're not paying the full rate for both people. You're paying an additional $9 to $1,200 so you can live there and eat, have your
And
laundry
play.
done and go on transportation
Yeah.
and activities and things like that. So that will happen mostly on the assisted living level. When people need memory care, when one spouse needs memory care, it depends on the level of dementia. Can they day program in the dementia wing and go home at night, or you need 2 apartments? And very often people will pick 2 studios. I'm living in the studio in the independent or assisted side, and my spouse is living in the studio in memory care. What Allyson said, that's actually become more common, is to have people live together in memory care. And you know what it usually happens? It's the gentleman that doesn't have the memory loss. The gentleman, the husband of the couple, is more willing to live with his wife in memory care than the wife living with the husband in memory care. So,
Yeah.
So thank you. So another question, and someone did some research, they've been going through this, but they were commenting on for-profit versus nonprofit. What are your thoughts on those communities? Is it helpful to look at, for example, the organization structure of the company? Like, how many communities do they own? Did they build them? Did they buy them? Financial statements, sort of state licensing requirements. Allyson, is that something when you're helping people find a fit that you go through?
I have, surprisingly, and I can't even count the number of people, hundreds of people that I've worked with. I've really only had 1 or 2 people inquire about the financial statements of the company. They're more concerned typically with who's running the community, who's working there, and what the quality of life is in the community. Every community is subject to be sold. That's just the way of the world. So it is very hard to know or predict, but the communities will be very transparent when it comes to what their ownership structure is, because many of them have an ownership group and then they hire an operator.
yeah, management company should do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that company is the one that I actually look more closely at, because they're the ones who are responsible for the lifestyle, the quality of the food, the way that
Are we gonna eat cheese sandwiches today, or are we
Exactly.
gonna
And
homemade
what their-
fried chicken?
exactly, and what their programming is. A lot of these management companies actually have branded programs, whether it's for memory care, it could be a dining program, it could be their activities. Again, some of that falls into marketing, but it also speaks to the investment that they make in training their staff to provide services that are relatively consistent across their portfolio.
So to your, to add into whether it's not for profit or for profit, there's no difference. There's no difference. So there's no difference on financial.
In terms of the level of care, Karen, is that what you're
No.
speaking to?
No.
Okay.
There's no difference.
You don't see that difference.
They all work to the cost of operation of that community. Okay. So there's no difference. And whether it's a bigger company that owns like Brookdale, they own 785 senior living communities. They're the largest single senior living community company. The next one down from them is Sunrise at 275. Everybody else under that floats around 100 or 30 or 10. You know, it's just the way the company has decided they're going to run their company. You know, they like a 10 building company because they can move like this. Whereas a 785 company, they have a lot of systems and processes because they can't just change everything that day or tomorrow or have a new program without rolling out to 785 people. So that's just your choice as to, do you like the local people, or do you like that really super standardized, you know, structure? And really, honestly, all my years, there is zero difference between a for-profit and a not-for-profit. So
One other aspect of this is to look at whether a company is publicly traded. That's another difference. It could matter to somebody and it might not to others, but they look at that because stakeholders, you know, obviously those companies have to make sure that they're satisfying the people that are invested. A local company that has a handful of communities, they don't have that piece of the puzzle.
driving it.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a
But they
great
will have
segue.
like,
Oh, sorry, I was going to say this is a great segue to another question. And it was asked specifically to Santa Fe, but There are a lot of smaller communities and markets around the country. How does one navigate a limited supply and choice of options in Santa Fe or anywhere else? And how do you both spoke to potential changes of ownership or management and changing costs. If you're already in a facility, and I know, for example, I have a client who shared with me the change in cost after COVID from early pandemic, increasing costs. We've seen that across the board, but their fees went up at their assisted living. So limited supply and choices, and then those changes.
One of the things in Santa Fe is that the number of communities is really just reflective of the size of the population of Santa Fe. So it's, I look at it from a developer standpoint and think it would be really risky for a new developer to come in when none of the communities are really full. And even if they are, they don't necessarily maintain that. So the choices really just apply, there are options. And again, I really think that the communities reflect different types of options people would like. There are a couple communities that are newer, that are more, let's just say, modern aesthetically, could be considered more luxury. There are some communities that are really more, I say, characteristic of Santa Fe. That appeals to some people. A couple communities might feel more homey, a couple might feel more institutional. So it just really depends. Again, it's a private choice, just like all the different neighborhoods we have. And that is really just a matter of finding the comfort level for any individual. As far as navigating goes, talking to somebody who knows the communities intimately, as you know, that's what I do and know. And so talking to the communities and really just finding out and learning about the options. I think it helps too sometimes when people start with talking to a senior living advisor like me. Other people do this. The point is that when you can talk to somebody who has an objective perspective, hears from residents who live in the communities and really knowing what they're experiencing, but also being able to really weed out communities that why bother look at them if it doesn't appeal to you at all, even from the high level, initial research. And on the other side, really being able to identify what matches with somebody's values and interests and things and budget, things like that. So in larger communities, there will be more choices. There are more people. So it's really just kind of relevant to
any developer, this goes back to what Allyson was saying, is going to look at the census of every community in town. And if everybody needs to be operating at above about an average 75% census for them to feel like there's room in the market for another community. Santa Fe had a big burst in building between about 2015 and like 2018. And I could say that you could probably go into town right now. I want a 1-bedroom apartment and I could find 70 to pick from for me today. So let's talk about fee real quick, about why those fees went up. Everybody froze their fees in 2021 because they were so afraid of losing their clients because they weren't moving people in. But then there was, you have to eventually catch it up. Just like everything else in business, the wages went up. Okay, so you have to pay, like in Santa Fe alone, it went from the minimum wage went from 11 to 12, and then Whole Foods starts paying 15. What's the hospital paying? So all sort of rising tide lifts all boats. So what I've seen in the market, and this is again in your financial planning, is prior to 2020, you were probably looking at a yearly increase between 4 and 5%. Okay. And now this year, this is my own company. We don't own anything in Santa Fe. I'm all in the Midwest and in Florida. But I liken our Midwest communities to kind of the Santa Fe markets, kind of these little 80,000 person towns and stuff like that. 10%, 13%. Okay, because it's not just labor, it's the cost of food. The cost of food went up when literally one of our chefs says, listen, I can't buy a box. Last year I could buy a box of chicken to get ready, like raw chicken, for $80. And now I'm paying $170 for it. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that are all in that. It's not just to get you, it's just so we can keep having dinner. So, and have the caregivers there to do it. So I really would say you need to look at that financial planning is at least a 10% increase year over year, and be surprised when it's 7. Okay. So,
But also realize that the communities don't want to price people out of the community. So they are very careful when they do increases. And I would say that if it is becoming tight for somebody or very difficult for somebody to stay living there, I think it's worth a conversation with the executive director just to see.
oh yeah, back to the Tetris. If I'm living in the 2-bedroom with the balcony, but I know that I still need my care and things, I might move to the studio because I still have my lifestyle in the community. Now I'm used to it, and this is my space now. So they will work with you. They will work with you.
One last comment or question. It's both. Someone experienced, and this is very related to this topic, someone experienced in 2021 or early 2022 that this particular community stopped purchasing incontinence supplies for the residents, and the families were then responsible, and they're actually, you know, not inexpensive. Have you seen that as a means of not increasing their rates at a higher percentage, that they are then cutting other areas of service? Is that common?
That is odd. What would often happen is incontinence products are a fact of life. They cost a certain amount of money. So a lot of communities, what they like to do is they like to have their families on a program. Okay. So I don't have mine are coming from Walmart. Jeff's are coming from Costco. Oop, ran out of Jeff. Can't run over and get Karen's from Walmart. They're all coming from one company. We have everything we need all the time without having to call the family on Tuesday night. So what I only can think is they were doing that as a package. Usually it's like $350 a month, and they might have not been able to be cost effective. And they might have told the families, listen, I won't raise your rent because our incontinence package has started to be cost prohibitive. You can now not pay for that and go to Walmart yourself. So that might have been where it came from. But as far as reduced services, what I've noticed in some of my company, we offer 3 dining venues. So we have a bistro, a cafe, and a fine dining. We have 18 different meal choices. Okay, so at any given meal on the menu, 18 different things that you can pick from. But when US Foods doesn't have chicken, we have to make some adaptations. And so we talked to the residents and said, we're going to have to go down to about 10 choices. Okay, and then they said, well, we had to do some hard work about when it was time to raise the fee, because they monthly fee by 10% or something. And they said, well, wait a minute, we're getting 6 fewer choices than when we moved in, and why we picked this community, et cetera. And so you have to have those one-on-one meetings. So that's now let's look at you with this side. You have that one-on-one meeting with them. Okay. And we have to say, it's like, listen, labor also went up. Electricity went up. So we buy the toilet paper. It went up. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing. And so I would say maybe what we didn't do is open the bistro for breakfast, because it was the least attended meal. So we could continue to have more choices at lunch and dinner, those kinds of things. So
I think
it's an individual conversation. If you're at the community, now you have negotiating power because you have been there. You are a client they do not want to have to go and recreate. So,
and I think I may have misread the question, but it looks like there is an additional fee for those supplies now. It is fairly
and to me, that was a weird operating structure, because I don't think, Allyson, you tell me, is like, I don't think I've ever been anywhere where people just supplied them incontinence, because that's expensive.
Yeah, and different people have different needs.
Large,
they use different supplies, different amounts.
Absorbency. Gloves. How many times a day you go through them?
Go on and on, but we probably need to wrap up. Jeff, did you have anything to add?
This is great. I always appreciate Allyson, Karen, the opportunity to talk with you and learn these things. It's kind of like, again, as an outside observer, I see things, but you both know the details inside, and so I'm very grateful for your knowledge. Karen, can you share with us? I think we have something scheduled in January, or just we're going to continue the conversation.
We
And
do.
so, yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, so on January 25th, we will have a third panel that will cover in-home care. I believe the time is also at 10 a.m., but we'll be sending out an invitation. We have a local in-home care provider who will be on that panel, as well as, I believe, a case manager and potentially one other provider. So I think it'll be extremely useful from that perspective.
And thanks everyone again. If you have additional questions, anything, please send them in to us. We can also put you in contact with Allyson and Karen, and there's other resources. So thanks so much, everyone.
All right, happy holidays.
Happy
That's
holidays.
right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.